First of all, I know you've come hot foot from the Le Mans 24 Hours where Porsche won again, but more importantly, it was the car you retired from essentially at the end of last season, Timo Bernhardt, Brendan Hartley, that won Le Mans. So it must have been a kind of bittersweet feeling for you in many ways.
Yeah, it was emotionally an incredible 24 hours. The car wasn't in great shape early on. Had a technical, and the guys managed to fix it. The mechanics, typical Le Mans fashion, 1 hour flat out in the sun. The garage was just, it couldn't have been any worse for them trying to fix the car. And yeah, very dramatic. Toyotas didn't make it, and our sister Porsche didn't get to the end either, and then the car 2 was there to get the victory. So sensational for Timo and Brendan, huge result for them. Earl Bamber's won it before, which is great. So the three of them, it was really great for them to get that result.
Now, we've recently seen your good mate Fernando Alonso racing in the Indy 500, and of course Nico Hülkenberg was with you with Porsche at Le Mans the year before. Do you think we're starting to see drivers beginning to branch out a bit? And for the last few years, Formula One drivers have been very focused just on Formula One. Back in the 60s, as you know, it was quite common for them to race multidiscipline. Is it something you feel the drivers would like to do a bit more of? Is that a direction of travel?
I think so. I think it would be good too. I think that Formula One, the schedule is busy, clearly, but the testing has become a lot less demanding. So it's front-loaded, obviously, at the start of the year. The teams then know that there's gaps in the calendar, not too many, obviously the season's long as I said, but in terms of then PR-wise, they know they can facilitate the drivers maybe a little bit harder. But then what do the drivers love doing? It's not PR, they want to race. So, for them to have the chance of maybe doing something else, which won't dilute or take their eye away from the main gig, if you like, which is clearly in Formula One. If they're not winning in F1, can they have a look at doing something else? So that's how those other scenarios were born out. Obviously, Nico and Fernando through different scenarios, obviously. But just quickly, if you look at how it is in America, if you look at the dirt track racing and tarmac racing, a lot of my heroes in the States grew up like that as well and still do now. I mean, you look at someone like a Tony Stewart, who is, there's nothing for Tony in his day to be racing a midget race on Wednesday night in a short oval dirt track and then on track in Saturday and Sunday. So that's cool, and that's our DNA.
Now, of course, when you're a Grand Prix driver or a Le Mans sports car driver, you're very focused on driving and winning and getting the best results. And that's what matters to you. Now you've stepped away from that and you've become a broadcaster. You and I have worked together. You're a very, very natural broadcaster, if I may say so. But presumably you're now starting to appreciate motorsport from a different perspective now, because you're thinking of it from your audience's point of view, the fans' point of view. How can the sport become more entertaining? Tell us a bit about what you've kind of realised about motorsport from that transition.
Yeah, you're right, James. I think it's incredible when you're outside the bubble as an athlete and as a professional. You're just totally drilled into that 24/7, and you have a big responsibility for the team to deliver clearly and to yourself. So that's all-encompassing when you are doing that in the cockpit, and then you step away from it and you come back to it. I stepped away slowly because I had a nice snapshot of it in sports cars, which was a much more lighter program, if you like, only 8 or 9 races and more testing, don't get me wrong. But so that was interesting to sort of see that first phase, and then the second phase for me, obviously no driving and still being sort of involved, as you say, on the other side of the camera, so to speak, or I love getting the drivers' input out, because that's what I think that we still can do a better job of, and try to help getting people at home understand what's going on in the cockpit. So that's something that sort of stimulates me. But the understanding of it, I think that when you are, the difference between even Formula One and sports cars is, I think the drivers, amazingly in sports cars, everyone gets on a little bit better. Frustratingly in Formula One, it's not like that. I think it clearly was in the 60s and 70s, and I think because there was consequences and people were getting hurt back then, I suppose it was where the trust element was a little bit higher. So I'd love that to be maybe a little bit better. Maybe it is now, I'm not sure. I've been out F1 for a while, but that was interesting. Formula One is clearly, extremely professional. It is the most professional championship that I ever have done in terms of, from the marketing, from the, organisation, logistics, team and those sort of things. So that's been an interesting learning, just how efficient Formula One is as a juggernaut, as an organisation. So there's loads and loads of learnings, but you do look back on it when you come out of it and say, there's a lot of things that we can still do, because you're much more neutral, of course, and you haven't got an agenda of your own little program.
We've been speaking a lot in the last couple of days here in Geneva at the Sport Conference about the importance of building the sport around the drivers, particularly at the elite level. And you've just been touching on it just there. Being one of them, how much responsibility do you think the drivers are willing to shoulder through their social media, through their own activities, to promote the sport and to inspire the next generation?
Well, It's fascinating, really, how it works with all the social media now, the platforms that they do have to trigger a brand within themselves. Clearly, they are endorsing themselves, and in turn, they're endorsing their activity, which is motorsport. So they have a tremendous opportunity to do that. There's a lot of people that love our sport, so how can they give even more? For an extreme case, maybe someone like Sebastian, Vettel, who is very, very private, obviously. So he's not, in many people's eyes, maybe giving a lot back on that side, but Sebastian is, when it comes down to one-on-one scenarios with people, incredibly generous and incredibly good for our sport. Massively, massively old school, but that's how we like to play things. And then you've got Lewis or these other characters that like to, play their life out Monday to Friday, which is fine as well. So I think, do they have to be role models? Do they have to be pigeonholed into a certain box? Well, no, they're not. One of the biggest brands in world motorsport is Valentino Rossi. And Valentino Rossi is his own machine. And he will do his own PR and how he wants to do them. People gravitate towards him because he's a gladiator, he's a hero, and he loves doing things how he wants. So there's a lot of learnings from other sports that we can have. But I think the opportunity for the teams to peel back on the seriousness of actually, the racing cars at the end of the day, yes, it's serious. There's not many people can do it, but let's just not get too far ahead of ourselves of how unique and special they might be.